Do you struggle with fear, worry, or anxiety? Now, I bet you do. It has to be the most common, unwanted, negative emotion that we experience as humans. It's certainly the most common problem that people came to see me about. And people would ask me, this fear is such an annoying problem. Why did God give us the ability to be fearful? Well, He gave it to us as a gift for our own survival. And the reason was, He wanted us to be afraid to do things that were dangerous. He wanted us to be afraid to walk too close to the edge of a cliff or drive too fast around a curve. And so it was to be useful. But Satan saw that we had this vulnerability, we had this capacity to be afraid. So he preys upon it, and so he uses it. So he studies your life and your behavior. He knows what gets you upset. He knows what makes you fearful. And he just loves to whisper those fearful thoughts into your mind because he knows what'll get you going. He also loves situations of uncertainty, because when you're facing something that has an uncertain outcome, he loves to prey on that and give you ideas of the worst possible outcome when you're not sure what'll happen. And so he wants to get you preoccupied with negative outcomes and, whoa, imagine what might happen. And so he loves that. And so we need strategies to be continuously pushing back his attempt to infiltrate our mind with fearful thoughts. And in the past, in these videos, I've given you lots of tips. Like one of the most common ones I've given you is recognize that any unpleasant, fearful thought that comes into your mind, starting with the words, what if, consider it a demonic thought missile that's coming against you. And you just ignore it, rebuke it, and send it back. Or another tip is when you become preoccupied with fear, ask Jesus, what does he think about the situation? What does he want you to believe? And choose that. And another strategy was to worship, because when you worship, it's demon repellent. They don't like to be around worshipers. But here's something new that Jesus showed me just recently, the last time I was really upset and stewing and I was going in circles with fearful thoughts. Right in the middle of one of my stews, I heard him say to me very clearly, he said, you're listening to a spirit. And then there was this long pause. And I had to realize that, yes, I was listening to all of these negative thoughts, and in a situation of uncertainty, I was assuming the negative outcome and bracing myself for a bad outcome. And then he said, you're listening to a spirit. Why don't you listen to my spirit? And it was like a wake-up call that I realized I was choosing to listen to a dark spirit giving me, reminding me of negative outcomes that would upset me. All the while, he was telling me the reality of the situation, that there was nothing to fear. And so he said, why don't you choose to listen to my spirit, which is comforting you and giving you the true picture, then choose to listen to the dark side, which is just upsetting you. That was such a wake-up call. Then he says, you have the mind of Christ. You have to learn how to think like us. Well, that was very interesting. And then the last thing he said was, remember that the fearful thoughts that come from the dark side are an illusion. So ask us what's really going on and choose that interpretation. Well, this just completely turned things around for me when I saw the reality of what was happening. And then, of course, the crisis passed. There was nothing to worry about at all, and what God had told me was accurate. And it's a reminder of Ephesians 6 and 12. We are not fighting against flesh and blood. We are in a spiritual battle, whether you want to recognize it or not. You're in a spiritual battle. Satan loves to influence your thoughts, and you choose what voice you're going to listen to. So the next time you get caught in that worry circle and you just can't seem to shake it and you're preoccupied with negative outcomes and you're facing a situation of uncertainty, choose to listen to God's voice and recognize the voice of darkness which you're paying attention to. Choose to listen to God's voice. Ask him what's really going on, what does he want you to know, and how does he want you to pray. And that can turn your situation around like it did for me. Now I want to hear from you. How have you dealt with fearful situations like I described? How has God intervened in your life to settle it in your heart? So just leave your testimony in the box below, because it will encourage someone. And if this is your first visit here, you need to get my free self-assessment guide. And to do that, just subscribe to my weekly email newsletter. And I'll talk to you again next week. But this week, pay attention to when you get fearful thoughts and then ask God, what does he say about it?